let's talk about the Super League with their single-page website, terrible logo, and apparently rushed decision-making. You have to wonder, why? Why do this? Why try to throw away over 100 years of competing on sporting merit in the name of guaranteed payments and investment? The people at the top of football are not idiots. You don't become a billionaire by being lucky. You get there by being, some combination of smart, ruthless, willing to take risks, and probably some other attributes. So as much as we'd like to say, oh boy, that was a really idiotic thing you did there, it actually gives the owners too little credit. So don't chalk this up to just a bad decision. This was a deliberate action, obviously. It was calculated. They knew. JP Morgan Chase, that is underwriting the whole Super League thing, or was underwriting the whole Super League thing, knew as well, according to some of the journalism I've read. There was going to be a negative response. JP Morgan Chase has an internal reputation committee that reviews deals like this. Like, I'm sure it's like, we're about to lend money to some horrible dictator. What do we think about that, right? Like, they review these types of deals, and they made the assessment that there would be a negative reaction, but obviously not so much negative that it was going to be so damaging to their reputation that they shouldn't move forward. So they did it anyway. So that leads us back to why. Knowing the response that could happen, and perhaps everybody involved underestimated it, but knowing it would be immensely unpopular, they pressed on. That's telling. So why? I think that's the question we would all love to know the answer to. In my opinion, the inherent problem, the dissonance faced in football, is that of being a company versus being an institution. And a lot of times, an institution, obviously, in a local community. It's that of being an owner versus a caretaker. These things are in dissonance with each other. They grind against each other. In order to generate profits and stay alive, no club nor company can stay alive indefinitely without profits. So clubs have to be at the top of Europe, and they greatly increase their odds of being at the top of Europe by spending big on the best players, right? So being at the top of Europe gets you the highest financial reward on your investment. Well, to be at the top of Europe, you have to have, or you greatly increase the odds. Like, you can't have an Ajax, right, that goes and doesn't spend bajillions of dollars on transfers and gets deep into the Champions League. So there is every so often a model that does pull this off, but you greatly increase your odds of being at the top of Europe and in those competitions by spending big on the best players. So the former part of that puts all the power in the hands of UEFA and FIFA. And the latter part of that means it becomes a spending free-for-all. This is a problem if you're an owner. This leads to the problem of UEFA and FIFA being corrupt themselves and not applying their own rules evenly. The whole point of financial fair play was to help avoid the likes of Man City and PSG spending all the oil money in the universe to win the leagues and thus keep the highest financial rewards for themselves. Which not only, when you get that first initial massive investment makes you a big club, but it helps you stay a big club because you are keeping the financial rewards for yourself and not sharing them with, second place, third place, fourth place, 18th place in your league. That in and of itself is a form of not competing on sporting merit. So save me the stuff Pep Guardiola about, it's not sport if you're not competing. Like, well, when you ignore the rules, right? Like, it wasn't that long ago, UEFA were going to kick Man City out of the Champions League for 2 seasons. And unless you think this is a Liverpool fan saying, ooh, this is Man City. It's not. We'll get to that. But they were going to kick Man City out of the Champions League for 2 seasons. And then Man City was like, no, you're not. We've got so much money and so many lawyers. We'll tie you up in court for decades. You've stated your intentions, and they got away with it. They were allowed to get away with it because UEFA and FIFA needed Man City, right? More than Man City needed then. So let's roll this down to, what kind of an owner do you want? Do you want one that demands the club generate a profit every year to go into the owner's pocket, like a Mike Ashley at Newcastle? Well, that's going to impact how the club is run. That's going to impact the club's ability to compete in bidding wars for talent. And if you want to be at the top, you got to compete in those bidding wars. So you can't have that. Maybe you'd take the owner that didn't do that, but instead bought all the players on debt, and eventually leaves the club with a pile of debt so large that they can lead to administration. So, okay, so you go, well, I don't want either of those. Those sound terrible. I don't want those problems. So you do the mental gymnastics to ignore really where the money comes from, because, my goodness, there's just so much of it, which allows you to be run sustainably. Everybody wants the benevolent owner who doesn't take money out of the club and doesn't saddle the club with debt, doesn't get their billions from morally iffy means, and, of course, buys all the big players to put the best team on the pitch to win all the competitions. That owner doesn't exist. Owners only have so many ways to recoup their investment in a club. They could take profits out of it every so often. Like, it doesn't have to be every year I take, 10 million euro out of my club. It could be every other year. It could be every 5 years. But they have to be able to take profits out of the club. Or they can never take profits and have the value of the club increase over time, so that, you buy something for $1 and you sell it for $10, right? You sell it for more than what you paid for at some point in the future. So all of this comes back to being a company with shareholders that hold you accountable to generating a return on investment. That's your duty as an owner, is to generate a return on investment, versus being an institution in a local community. That's the dissonance. And I can even understand why these teams made this move. It was a power move against UEFA. It's saying to UEFA, you control our financial destiny. You don't apply your own rules evenly, right? So I'm in a spending war. I'm FSG, right, at Liverpool. I'm in a spending war with Man City, PSG, Man United, Arsenal, Tottenham, whoever, right? And I can't control how all my competition get their revenues or cook their books to be able to afford, according to FFP, to buy the biggest players. I'm competing against all of that. And on top of that, I'm competing against all of that to get into this competition that you exclusively control the rights to, and you divvy up the revenue share however you see fit. Like, amidst all this, the Champions League format has drastically changed, and there's a ton more games. So the owners are saying, I'm taking back the power. I'm going to own the competition. Like, the clubs were going to own the Super League. They were going to own the rights to resell the TV rights. This was a power move to get some of that power. Let's say it's a balance like this, right? They're trying to get it from going like this to at least a little bit more like this, or even maybe like this. They want to get that power back to control their destiny. So, like, as an owner, I can understand why you did this. The only problem, of course, is that the owners thought there were only two stakeholders in football: the federations that control the money and the TV rights and the competitions and all that kind of stuff, and the owners. They ignored the players, and most importantly, the fans. This, to me, was a desperation move, and we should all be concerned when the billionaires get desperate. It's a deep signal that football is gravely broken. It's easy to go like, oh, it was just a money grab. Well, you have to go, why? Like, they've already got billions, so why was it a money grab? Right? So nobody is innocent in this. So I'm not saying, again, as a Liverpool fan, hey, FSG was doing the right thing here. I'm not saying that whatsoever. Every club, doesn't matter if it's Arsenal or Tottenham or Real Madrid or Barcelona, has football fan aware people in the club. Okay? So looking at Liverpool, you've got Kenny Dalglish, right? Like, if they'd called Kenny Dalglish or Jurgen Klopp, they would have been told, this is a terrible idea. This will not work. The fans will not go for it. So it's the classic, I'm asking for forgiveness and hoping that the thing that I'm doing is going to work and that people will be upset, but they'll accept my apology, rather than asking for permission. It's something that you did as a kid, right? You're like, well, I'm not going to tell my parents that I'm going to go do this really dumb thing, but I'm going to hope that they don't get too upset when they find out. So you have to go back to, so why did they do it? Why did they do it? And I think it's because structurally there's a gigantic issue in football, and it's a spending free-for-all. And clubs are going, I can't keep this up. Because the other thing is, if you're going to get your profits by selling the club at some point in the future, there has to be someone willing to pay more for it. Like, this is a problem. So how do we fix this? What are your thoughts on how do we fix this? Is it spending caps? Is it salary caps? Is it a requirement of the 50% plus one rule across the world to where fans own 50% plus one share of every club so that they have a say? Do they have a seat on the board? Do they have a voice? Something like that. Is it financial fair play that you can't sue over? That there's an agreement, hey, you're joining the Champions League or the Europa League or you're participating in a UEFA competition and you can't sue us. Well, I don't think anybody's going to go for that because that puts all the power in the hands of UEFA and FIFA, who again, as we've noted, are also corrupt. So how do we fix this? How would you fix this? If you had a magic wand where you could go like ding and you could make all the problems disappear, what would be your fix? Let me know in the comments. Hit that like button if you've enjoyed this type of content. Subscribe if you're new. If you want to see more stuff like this and support the channel, you can become a YouTube member or join me on patreon.com/grayhairgaming. The links to those are in the description. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.